Well, I do hope you're enjoying Connect Season 1 2018 for so far. I've been hearing some good feedback from some of the groups. That's great. I'm glad that you're being encouraged and challenged and blessed. Hard to believe that this is session 3 that we're on already. And in this session, we're talking about and looking at the whole subject of keeping life simple. Because when you read 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, you do get the impression from Paul that he's effectively saying to these believers in the church of Thessalonica, just keep life simple, guys. I don't want you to complicate your lives in all sorts of ways. He begins by saying, he says, you know how we instructed you to live to please the Lord. And we know that you're doing that, but we urge you to do that more and more. Sometimes I think we get the idea that somehow as we progress in the Christian life, that the Christian life should get more complicated and it should get more serious and more difficult and if you like, in inverted commas, deeper. And I know we should grow in our knowledge of the Scriptures and in our knowledge of God, and there should be depth in our relationship with God and in our Christian experience. But we should never lose sight of the fact that there is a simplicity to the Christian faith. There's a simplicity that is in Christ. That to progress in the Christian faith means that we keep doing the things that we did at the beginning, that we keep on doing those things and living for Jesus. We stay zealous in prayer and witness and evangelism and in fellowship with one another, in our worship, in our giving, in all of those things, that we keep our lives focused and keep our lives simple and keep our faith simple. And I want to encourage you tonight that to continue to live in the way that you were taught and continue to do those things that please the heart of God. Serve Him wholeheartedly, love Him wholeheartedly, reach out to others, share your faith, and give your tithes, worship zealously and passionately, pray with passion, keep hot in your faith. I urge you, like Paul, to do what you're doing more and more. And then Paul moves on to talk about purity. And he's talking here about what we might call sexual morality. And now, obviously, he's saying this against the backdrop of his Jewish upbringing and the background in the Scriptures that he had. And when one examines the Scriptures and what the Scriptures say about sex and sexuality, you find very quickly that when you go back to the book of Genesis and when you look at the teaching of Jesus, particularly in Matthew 19, and Paul's own teaching in Romans 1, that sex is something that's given as a gift for two people, a man and a woman, who are married in a marriage relationship. So when Paul is talking about purity in 1 Thessalonians 4, he's talking about these things against that particular background. And he warns here very, very strongly against sexual immorality, and he warns against going outside of the boundaries that God has set down, and he issues a call to purity. He says it's a calling. He says that we are called to be holy. This is something that's special. It's a calling from God for each of us. So how does he tackle this whole issue of purity and impurity and immorality? Well, effectively, he says 3 things about impurity. He says that impurity, or we might call it immorality, it diminishes us as people. That when we indulge in that kind of activity, it does something of damage to our own selves. He effectively says that people who indulge in this have lost control. They're out of control, and he urges these Christians to be self-controlled in their relationships with others. And then a second thing is that immorality or impurity, it disrespects others, because again, Paul says it means that you're taking advantage of someone else. And have we not seen that in recent times in the reports that we have had of some of the things that have been happening in Hollywood, and some of the scandals that we have heard from various organizations across the world, and some of the things that have even been happening in Westminster. We've heard all of these stories, and we see how people have been diminished and disrespected by the kind of behavior that the Bible speaks against. And then, of course, Paul says that not only are those things true, but it also is something that dishonors God. Because God has called us to be holy. This is his calling. This is his will for us. So Paul issues this call to purity. So 2 things there. He says, keep your faith simple and keep your lives pure. And then he says, keep loving one another. So keep warm-hearted to one another. And he says no one needs to teach you about this because God's already taught you to do that. And I just want you to do that more and more. And you know, when I look around the church and I see the strength of relationship that there is between people and the love that there is and the encouragement that there is, I want to celebrate that. And I want to at the same time say, keep on doing this, guys, and do it more and more because it really is precious. It really is special. It's so important for people, particularly when they go through challenging times, to have people around them that will love them and support them and just be there for them and pray for them. It brings such strength to our lives and such strength to the life of the church. And finally, Paul says, keep your life simple. Make it your ambition to lead a quiet life. And here's what the message translates this. It says that, if I can find the page here, it's not often I read to you. The message translates or expresses verses 11 and 12 in this way of 1 Thessalonians 4. Stay calm, mind your own business, do your own job. You've heard all this from us before, but a reminder never hurts. We want you living in a way that will command the respect of outsiders, not lying around sponging off your friends. Well, that's really, really strong language, isn't it? But Paul says here, he says, I want you to keep a simple perspective on life. Just make sure that you get on with your life, that you mind your own business, that you keep your life simple, that you stay calm. Don't worry about what the people next door have, or don't worry about what your friends have, or what you haven't got, or whether you succeeded in this or that or the other, or whether you think you're as far on in life as you should be, or you've achieved all the things that you think you should have achieved or would have achieved by this stage of your life. Paul says just keep your perspective on life simple and keep serving Jesus. So there we are, pacemakers, or pacesetters, keep life simple. They keep a simple perspective in life. They keep their lives pure, and they keep warm-hearted to others.